Hello and welcome to Control Delete Tutorials. My name is Jason, and a while back I had done some different hair tutorials, and in this video we're going to do another way of doing a character's hair, more looking at being used for game use than anything else. But I wanted to show another approach that I've kind of picked up, and I think it's going to be really handy for people. So this was the head that we had used in the other demonstration. Kind of looks weird because we don't have any eyes in it, but what we're going to do is create a strand of hair that we can reuse over and over again. The other thing we're going to use is we're going to use this splines tool to draw out different splines for the hair to follow. So the first thing to do is to create our hair object. So I'm just going to start with a cylinder. And let's go ahead and turn our segments down here. We'll fix that after. And I'm going to just make this 8-sided there. And we will draw out our first set of hair. Now we want to try to, let's move our head down here. That way we're not always recentering there. There we go. All right, so we want to make our hair strand about as long as we might expect it to go from wherever it's going to start from the top of the head and work its way down, depending on how long you want the hair. And so typically I'm just going to have this a bit longer. It's a little easier to use. We can always make it shorter if we have to. I use 8-sided because that allows us to turbo smooth and things like that, which, if you're in the practice of kind of doing that, then you want to start off lower poly and you can kind of work your way up. And we're okay with the radius as is right now. So the height segments, the way I like to handle the height segments is I like to give myself enough segments so that I know it's going to deform to the head well. And I might be overdoing it there. Let's try 20. Usually what I look for, I'll change my height just a little bit. So we'll set this to like 15. Set our radius to 1. I'm working in centimeters right now. But what I look for is getting almost like a square-shaped polygon going down through there. So right now what we have is we have a cylinder. And we'll convert that to editable poly so we can change some things about it. Now, I don't need the polygon on top because ideally that's going to be where the hair is growing from. And actually right now, based off of the way the hair is, I want the top to be where this pivot point is. So I'm just going to go ahead and rotate this. Let's turn on angle snap so that we can rotate that 180 degrees. And I'm going to reset the transforms right now. So just the utilities panel, reset X form, reset selected. And that's going to put this X form modifier on here. We'll just convert that back to an editable poly. The reason I do that is if I right click on my, if I right click on rotate here, I want to make sure all of these are zeroed out. And that just kind of does that for me. Okay, so we'll take our polygon at the top. We'll delete that one. And we'll take the one at the bottom, delete that one as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these polygons here, and I'm just going to collapse this, which is going to pull this down into a point. And then what I'll do is, I'm not a big fan of triangles, so I'm just going to select every other edge here, and I'll control backspace to remove those, and that leaves me with quads at the bottom. All right, so next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of a shape to this. So I'm going to go to my FFD 3x3x3. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and do the 4. And let's make sure we're not in, we're out of our edge mode here. So let's do 4x4. FFD 4x4x4. And what this will allow me to do is I can take these points at the bottom and we'll say we're trying to get this kind of curve shape to where these come down to more of a point for our hair. I'll kind of make this a little smaller at the top. Let's bring that in all directions. Let's make sure we did that on the bottom as well. So I'm just going to scale in all directions. Something like that. Scale down here. And I'm just making it to where the strand kind of comes out and narrows back down. I might make it a little bit wider here so we get this kind of curve to it. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'll just go to the top view here. I'm going to select all my control points and I'm going to scale them all this way. So I get something like this. And you know, I might even take some of the control points on this side. Just kind of pull this back through here a little bit. And that'll become like the back part of our hair. It'll give us a little bit of a flat shape here, a little more rounded out here. Okay, we'll convert that. Actually, I'll leave that one the way it is. Without the FFD, the other thing that we could have done is we could have put a taper on here, which we can still do. And what the taper will allow us to do is, if we look at our amount here, the way this changes the hair at the bottom, so we don't want to go too far down, but we can end up tapering more, and we can change this curve amount. Let's make sure we're going the right direction. Let's see, that's changing there. Yeah, so we want to do it in the Z direction. And we don't need to do it in both. Let's go in that direction. There we go. Okay, now we don't want to go past 1 in this case. We just want to taper it down a little bit, and we can use curve to kind of change that. But we basically have done that already with the FFD modifier. So I'm going to convert this to an editable poly, and I want to make sure that this is unwrapped. I'm also going to change my name here to hair strand. And let's go ahead and give this a number. We'll probably have a lot of these, so we want to make sure we're numbering these. Okay, so if I look at unwrapping this, now I want to unwrap this because we're going to be using this repeatedly, and I don't want to have to unwrap every single hair. So the way I'm going to unwrap this, let's see, and since we started with a cylinder, it should be pretty close to unwrapped. You can kind of see the hair there. We'll just rotate this. But what I'll be able to do is I can set this up to where maybe the front and the back are separated. So if I wanted to do that, I'll just take this entire thing from the front view first, and I'll just put a planer on it from the Y direction. And we can see what that looks like. It's going to squish the entire thing in here. And then what I'm going to do is that kind of gets rid of any seams that the primitive shape would have had. So now what I can do is I can just select the edges here and here, and we'll hit loop. So those will go all the way down. And then we'll convert our edge selection to a seam. And now if I select the polygon here, and I say expand polygon selection to seams, that'll give me the front, which I'll just click break over here. That'll separate the side that I have selected from the side that's not selected. This side here, we're just going to go ahead and use our tools to flip horizontally because we were looking at that from the other direction. And then all I've got to do is get both of these to fit in my UV space here. So I'll just go ahead and move those as close as I can get them together without touching. I'll select both of them, and I'll use my freeform mode tool here. And just kind of move these both into where they fit. And I like the freeform tool because I can see the bounds here, so I can get this to fit as close as I really want to get that. Let's bring this side in just a little bit. Now I've already gone and created a simple texture. It's not a great texture, but it'll work well enough for the demonstration that I'm doing. Okay, so I have that. I'll just go ahead and convert this back to an editable polygon. And we'll just save. And if I hop over to Photoshop, you can see what I have here. So I've decided that one side is the front and one side is the back. So I'm just going to drag out a ruler here and split this in half. And maybe make it to where the back half is just going to be a little bit darker. So I'll just come here and I'll change my levels. I'll just go ahead and bring this side down a little bit and maybe slightly adjust. Just to kind of darken the one side. So that way one side will be a little bit darker than the other. And yes, it'll give me a line going down the middle of the hair, but I'm okay with that for what we're doing demonstration here. Okay, so that's kind of what that looks like. So we'll just do save as, hair splines, and we'll just save this in there. I'm going to save the Photoshop file, and then I'll just save out a JPEG. Is fine for now. So I'll just call this hair texture. Save that. And then we'll save as a JPEG. Same thing. Okay, so we'll hop back into 3ds Max. And we'll just create our new standard texture. We'll drop in our bitmap here. And we'll pop that into our diffuse. And we'll say, make sure we show this in the viewport. And we'll apply it. Okay, so then we have one side of our hair that's lighter. And one side that's darker. And the streaks are getting a little bit stretched, but I'm okay with that again, demonstration purposes. All right, so how do we go about taking this and applying it to our head? Well, in another tutorial, I had gone through and shown you guys how to create chains using the PathDeformer. And we're going to use a very similar method. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the splines. And we want to pick a surface for our splines to run along. So I'm just going to say draw on surface, pick. I'm going to pick the head. And we're going to offset them. Now this offset is set up for units, and from this center line to this line is 10 units. So I could see, this is going to be about 5, 2.5, 1. So probably going to go about 0.3, 0.5 on my model. Yours may differ. So we'll just start off with 0.3. And we'll go to the splines tool. Now what we are able to do is we can draw out the spline. But this is going to give me a lot of vertices. Let me just select that. Okay, a lot of them there. Okay, I don't want to have all those. I also want to have more of a consistent spacing. So what I'll do is I can drop down polydraw here, and I can change my distance for how far apart those are going to be. But right now it's set on pixels. I want it to be set on units. It gives me a little bit more control. So the units, we had offset by 0.3. I'm probably going to set this to, let's try 2 units. We'll see how that looks. So go back to splines, and I'm just going to draw where the hair is going to lie on this character. And so you can see I get more of a curve here. And I'm just going to come down part of the head. Okay. And let me see how far off we are here from the head. That's not too bad. Now if I wanted, now this is going to stick directly to the head. So if I wanted this hair to come away, now I can just come through and edit this. Whoops. Let's make sure we actually select the hair strand. And you only want to do one at a time. You can't do multiple or else this isn't going to work. So let's say I wanted this hair strand to kind of come away from the face. Well, I can just make that change. Now, something I'll typically do is I might select one of the line segments here. So we can see we're in the segment tool. And I'll come down and I'll divide this by 1. It's going to give me a vertex right here in the middle. So we'll select that vertex. I want to make sure this is set to smooth. So if I just right click, its control type will be smooth. And that just means that it tries to deform based off of the other curves from the other vertices here. So if I wanted to, give a little bit more of a curl on the end or have the hair kind of flip up on the end, I can kind of do that. I can just kind of pull these back out. Okay, so now the hair will follow that and it'll move away from the head. Now, if you want to change any of the other ones, you can do that. You can have a little bit more control here with soft selection. If I use that, it's going to affect, oh, that's way too much. Let's move this down. So we're looking for a color fall off to happen here. So blue means that it's only going to be moved a little bit. Red or orange or warmer colors mean it'll be moved more. So if I want to pull this hair, away from the head a little bit more, I can do that. The other thing I like to do is take the one on this end, and I'm going to pull this down towards the scalp. I'll turn my soft selection off here so that this goes directly into where the hair is going to come from. And then I'll take the one here and I'll divide it. So I kind of divide towards the beginning of the hair and towards the end. So I'll just come down and divide. And that will allow me to adjust this so that the hair is going to come more directly from that spot. I'll change that a little bit. Yeah, it's a little better. Okay, so that's just one of them. Okay, now I would have to draw a lot more, obviously. So what I can do now is, I'm not going to use this shape here. This one is kind of my safe one that I know is fine. So I can just duplicate this. So I'll just shift and move as a copy. Let's hit OK. I'm going to go up here to Modifier List. And this is going to be one of the world space modifiers, not like the typical ones, the object space. And so, you know what, one thing that I do want to do to this, I'm going to put an FFD back on, let me put it on the original one here. This way, if I need to make the hair a little wider or change some of the settings about it, I can easily do that. So like if I want to take the control points here in the middle and scale those out or in, you can easily do that from the duplicate. Okay, so we'll drag that out as a copy. And on top of that, we're going to add the PathDeform. So under the parameters here, we don't currently have a path, so we'll pick the path we're going to use. Okay, now it doesn't really look like it's doing much. We need to actually move this to the path. And we're going to flip the direction so that it will follow the hair. Now you can see based on the direction it's running that it looks a little funny. It's got a little, kind of swoop thing going on. Okay, that's easy to fix. We just change our rotation here. We can rotate any direction along here. So I want to rotate to where that is now basically -90 would be fine. But that is coming out from the head and it's following our curve. Oh wow, I judged that length really well. We're only a little shy of that actual length there. So I can change my stretch amount here to have that hair continue out. So you can see here. So if I want to go out a little further with it. And then if you wanted to twist, you could have the hair twist. It's gonna, you want to be careful with it. It only, you know, looks nice a little bit, but if you twist it more than like, say 500 degrees, it's going to start, you know, it really depends on how many polygons you have to deal with, but you could twist along there as well. I'm going to turn that off. So that's going to be the gist of it. I'll do a couple more just so you can see it again, just so you don't have to, you know, go back and rewatch. So we'll start again. I'm going to select the head. I'm going to go to splines. And maybe I'll make this one. Come back this direction. So something like that. And I'm going to keep this one a little bit closer to the head. The other one I kind of moved up and far away. Normally I start on closer ones and then I move to further ones, which I can use that offset for. Okay, so we'll take the top one, take the bottom one, divide both. I'm going to pull this one down into the head. And kind of adjust this one a little bit further away from that first point. We'll just make this kind of come out a little bit. You want kind of a gradual curve here. Okay, so that's going to layer these together. I'm just going to keep this one pretty close to the head. Okay, so we'll duplicate this one again. Oh, I didn't adjust the bottom here. I like to make the ends kind of curve a little more. Let's see how that looks. And we'll just slightly pull this away from the head. Kind of like that. All right. So we take our hair, duplicate that as a copy, and we put our, up at the top here, PathDeform, pick path, pick, move to path, flip, and we'll also rotate that one. So now you can see how these are going to start layering. Now what's kind of funny about this is, well, this one's actually stretching past, so we actually have to change our stretch back if we don't want it to go past that point. But what's kind of funny about these world space modifiers is I can't just convert this to editable poly. You'll see if I convert it, it keeps this modifier on top. In order to actually convert it, we have to right click and say collapse to, and then it'll collapse everything. I'll do that in just a moment, but I wanted to show how if I go back to the FFD here, and I can say show end result. No, there we go. So what I can do is I can take any of these points, control point, and if I just move this over, you can see we can move that side of it. So if I want to make it a little wider there, or if I grab the points on this side, and I'm only moving them in the X direction, I can kind of pull that back. If I want to give a little more volume to the hair, I can select, or even, I might be able to select all of these. We'll see. I don't really want the one in the back though. And, you know, we'll just select the one up front. And so if I pull this forward, that raises the volume on that area. So I can make the hair a little, you know, fuller there. You can see it's kind of pulling through here. Another thing that's nice is any updates that I do to the original splines will affect the hair. So if I select this one and I go, oh, I really wish that would have been further over this way, it's easy. I'm going to turn on soft selection though, and we'll change our setting here. So let's make it to where that one's kind of blue. So we'll just bring this down a little bit more. That way we're only affecting this one side. If I move this, it updates automatically. I don't have to do anything, which is nice. Another thing that I like to do is sometimes I'll take the percent here and I'll back it off a little if the hair is kind of sticking out from the head. And I can do that. Like I said, any changes that I make here to these other paths, now if I want to change this, I just select that path underneath. And I can grab any of the points. I'll turn soft selection on. So if I have this area where it's kind of like pulling here, you can just kind of nudge that out and it fixes it. And I can keep doing this to the rest of my head. I can just sit here and keep creating different strands of hair using what I've already got. Now, I'm going to clone these, and I'll hide the clones just so I can show something. So just hide those. So if I want to collapse these, again, I said a right click, collapse to. I'm going to get this warning. When I get this warning, I know I've done it right. Typically, you don't want to see this warning, but that's the only way I can collapse this. So I'll say yes. Do the same thing to this one. Collapse to. Yes. Now, from this point on, I can't use those splines anymore to affect any of this. But I can use the shift, rotate, scale, push, and pull, any of these tools. So if I use shift, I can start, nudging different parts of the hair around. And it's not really like brushing, but it allows us to easily make adjustments to the hair. So if I want, a little more control over this. And that's basically it for this tutorial. If this method wasn't specifically what you were thinking you wanted to see and you wanted to see another way, please check out the 2 other hair tutorials that I have on my channel. I have one for doing short polygon hair, kind of low poly hair for male characters if you want this kind of feathered sort of hair look. That's using the object paint method. And then I have another one where it's sort of like doing the same sort of spline method, but in that one we are using strips. So anyway, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. If you liked what you've seen, please share it with someone if you think it might be helpful for them. All right. Thanks for watching.